Okay, so diving into something kind of heavy today. We're looking at those excerpts, notes from the end of everything. That really got me thinking. This John Gallo facing a brain tumor makes you think about life.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful look at life and death.
Mm.
What stood out to you most, like in his journals?
I think for me it was that initial reaction when he gets the diagnosis. Like it's raw and honest, but then also like funny. It's weird. He finds humor in this, well, pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's what makes it so real. He doesn't shy away from any of it, just puts it all out there. Like how we kind of pretend we're not going to die until, bam, we have to face it.
Right, exactly. Like he even says he always knew deep down life ends. But knowing and really knowing, because you're staring at it, they're different. Those early entries, you really feel him struggling with that.
It's that shift, right? From like, yeah, someday to this is IT. And how he describes his brain like it's, I don't know, this fragile thing breaking down. Chilling, but man, relatable.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, well, the punch I knew was coming finally landed. But here's the thing, even terrified, there's almost this relief in finally knowing.
It's strange, right? This awful certainty, but it brings a kind of peace. Not peace with dying, but like with the knowing. He can face it head on now.
Like, okay, that's settled, now what? Which leads to his whole thing about time, kind of ironic, limited time. And he's even more obsessed with being productive.
Oh, totally human, though. If something's scarce, we got to be super careful with it, right? But as Gallo says, time on its own isn't that valuable.
It's like he compares it to money. Can't just have it. You're forced to spend it every second. And that pressure to use it right, man, it makes it hard to just enjoy.
Yeah, he even says, even before, he always felt like he was wasting time. Working or relaxing didn't matter. It's like we're programmed to produce, to maximize every minute.
Makes you wonder, like, honestly, have you ever felt that? Wasting time, even on a fun day?
Totally. It's, I think, really common. But Gallo, he makes us rethink, what does wasting time even mean? Like, if you enjoyed it, was it really wasted, even if it wasn't, productive?
It's more about what matters to you, not some external pressure.
Right, I think so.
Yeah.
Not saying be lazy, but do things because they fit your values, find your own meaning. And that honesty thing, it ties into how he sees relationships, too.
Yeah. He's, like, desperate for real connection. Those totally honest conversations he felt were missing, even before the diagnosis.
He talks about how we dance around the tough stuff, like wearing masks, even with people we're close to, sticking to the surface, afraid to really let them in.
That hit me hard. Like, how are you? Good. But inside, maybe not. It's the script, right? Keeps us from really connecting. He finds a little escape in art, though. Books, films, music.
Yeah, they become these doorways to the raw stuff he craves but can't get in real life.
There's this bit about his cousin Henry watching TV. He says it was the best conversation he'd had in ages. Just real, no filter.
Shows the power of that, just being real. Letting your guard down, letting people see you, flaws and all. Gallo seems to say that's how you connect, build something real.
And yet, wanting that connection, he also needs more time alone. Which seems weird, right? Facing death, you'd think he'd want people around constantly, but he craves solitude.
It's like he needs it to process, to sit with everything he's feeling without anyone else's reactions layered on top. And it's not that unusual. A lot of people facing the end, they find comfort in being alone.
It's like he needs that alone time to really dig into the big questions, the meaning of it all, which he gets into faith and the universe, and then out of nowhere, Santa Claus.
Right, but it's such a good analogy, that childhood thing, figuring out Santa's not real. But he takes it further, like, was that belief good or bad even?
Yeah, questioning blind faith. Even something as, I don't know, pure as Santa, maybe it's not always a good thing.
Exactly. And then that links to how we saw God over time. Kid belief to something more complicated, and then he just rejects absolutes, embraces the not knowing.
And that's where the MRI scans come in, the ones he keeps mentioning. It's kind of creepy how he talks about them.
Oh, for sure. One of the most powerful parts. He's looking at his own brain, the thing, trying to understand everything, and it's just absurd.
Yeah, he even calls it this, like, cabinet of curiosities, seeing the physical thing that is his consciousness, but it's just more mystery.
Yeah, the brain, this logical thing, trying to grasp something way beyond it. Like we're trying to understand the entire universe with like one tiny flashlight beam.
Makes you feel pretty small, right? How do we find meaning if we're limited by just being us?
A question for the ages, right? But Gallo, he doesn't get all despairing. He talks about art like films, books, music, as a way to kind of bridge the gap. Find comfort in just being human together.
He mentions this movie that made him cry, and how much we love movies in general.
And he thinks it's because, not that they're real, but they create this powerful feeling of being real. We get to feel all these emotions, these stories, even if we know logically it's not real.
So like he's saying, okay, maybe we don't get the whole universe figured out, but we can find meaning in stories and connecting in the beauty we do see.
And he brings it back to his writing. He's not sharing because he's got answers, but because there's value in just trying to express it. This messy, confusing, beautiful life.
Being okay with the not knowing and finding beauty in just searching for it, which I think that takes us to legacy, right? What we leave behind.
He's torn about it, actually.
Yeah.
Wants to do good, obviously. But he also sees how little we can really know.
That example he uses, a deer runs into a car, and it somehow causes this huge event down the line, shows we can't control how our actions really play out.
Exactly. He says most change is just trying to fix what went wrong from the last time we tried to change things.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind bender, but Gallo doesn't see it negatively.
No, he finds, beauty in the not knowing, meanings in the trying, in living by what you believe, even if you can't control the outcome. It's about the journey, even if it's messy.
Which leads to, I think, the most intense part, regret. He gets really real here.
Oh, brutally honest. Beating himself up for not always living the way he thought he should, and now time's running out.
Talks about self-sabotage, fear holding us back from risks, from being our real selves.
He calls it this regret loop. Upset over things you can't change, then hating yourself for feeling that way, and it just goes on and on. Painful, but man, so many people relate to that.
His dad. He says they never really talked, not deeply, and now it's too late. It's rough.
And he ties that into his trouble expressing affection. His family, love was actions, not words. So being vulnerable, it was hard.
He even admits his mom trying to help, it bugged him, even though he knew it was love, like pushing away the people he cared about most.
Shows how what happened to us, it sticks with us.
Yeah.
Even when it's not good for us anymore.
But then, and this is wow, in all that darkness, something changes. He starts to accept his choices, his path. And there's some peace in that.
Not saying it's okay to screw up, but we all do. Nobody's perfect. He's saying find a way to forgive yourself and then really be in the present moment as much as you can.
Like he's finally letting go, trying to change the past, and now it's all about right now.
Yeah, you see it in the writing too. He's noticing like everything. Light on the wall, the feel of a leaf, the sound of rain, like his senses are just wide open.
He even says, reading his old writing, it's like a stranger wrote it.
It's because we're not the same person always, you know. We think we are, but we're shaped by what happens, by memories, even losing memories.
Makes you think, who were you years ago? Would you even recognize them now?
Kind of throws you off if you really think about it. But Gallo, he finds some freedom in that. Like shedding skins, making space to be who he is now.
And letting go, it's like he touches something bigger, says it's scary but amazing all at once.
Scary because it messes with how we see ourselves, right? But freeing too, because you don't have to control it, define it, be this fixed thing. And in that surrender, he finds this deep peace.
He says he's not afraid of death the same way anymore. Like, he's okay with it, you know?
Not that the fear vanishes, but it doesn't have him by the throat. Death isn't the end. It's a transition, part of something bigger.
Like, this is happening, so I might as well go along for the ride.
Exactly. And what a ride it gets. He talks about these intense sensory things, like the world showing off for him. A strawberry is not just a taste. It's this whole symphony. Birds singing. It's heartbreaking, he says.
Makes you realize we take it for granted, don't we? All that beauty, and we're stuck in our heads, worrying, regretting.
He finds joy in, like, nothing. It's stuff he never paid attention to before. It's like he's saying, pay attention. This is amazing. Even with the pain, the not knowing. Be here now. You know?
Yeah. And at the very end, there's this merging, he calls it, becoming part of something huge, bigger than just him.
It's not about heaven or some plan. It's we're all connected, part of this giant story unfolding. That fear's still there, maybe, but it's not in charge. What's left is peace, acceptance, and just being part of it all. Gallo's story, it's made up, but it hits on something real. Our time is limited. What if we didn't fear death so much? What if we let it teach us how to live? How would we act? Who would we be if we really got how precious each day is, even with all the unknowns?